One of the other subject matters that Steve Kerr had to address yesterday, and we talked about it last night, was Jonathan Kuminga and the recent comments in his conversation or his interview with a writer from The Athletic. And he essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, he was tired of going to the bench or didn't understand entirely why he wasn't getting more run and felt as though at times he wasn't being utilized properly. It leads to a bigger point and sort of this where we're at and sort of the crossroads of this team with the youth. Jonathan Kuminga, obviously, part of that movement, and the Brandin Podziemski, Trayce Jackson-Davis. It's a good thing, but also I think that it's going to come to a head here pretty quickly, especially when Draymond comes back. What is it that Steve Kerr does? Because there's going to be an odd man out here. You've got Brandin Podziemski, who's starting, and deservedly so, and Jonathan Kuminga, who's been playing well with starter minutes. So it becomes a math problem now when you bring back Draymond Green. Or does Draymond Green go back to the starting lineup? Or does Draymond have a conversation where he's like, listen, let's just keep status quo. We're playing well. I'm just sort of curious when the rubber meets the road when you're talking about Draymond coming back from that suspension, whenever that might be.
Well, this is a problem that's getting more and more difficult every day that goes by. Because every day that goes by, the made men in Steve's mind, the Stephs, the Draymonds, the Clays, if you want to throw Wiggins in there, get older, further away from their prime, and the young guys get more mature and closer to theirs. So, that's the problem. Or I don't even know if it's a problem, really, because it's just the nature of the evolution of aging, right? I mean, the younger players are getting better and getting closer to their prime. The older players are getting further away from their prime. To me, if Mike Dunleavy walked in here, I would be very eager to talk to him about how he sees the trade deadline and his team. Because to me, if you said, how do you see it as somebody who's watched every game and is a lifelong Warrior fan, I would say keep Steph and keep the big three young guys. In my mind, that's TJD, Podziemski, and Kuminga. So those are the four guys I don't want to see go anywhere. Steph Curry and the three young guys. Anybody else, it's all dependent on what are you getting, what are the offers? I'm open. I mean, if I was Mike Dunleavy, I would basically state that to every team in the league. I'm not moving Kuminga, I'm not moving Trayce Jackson-Davis, and I'm not moving Podziemski. And obviously, you don't need to ask, I'm not moving Steph. Anybody else on this team that you're interested in, make me an offer. And I'd be all ears. Now, that crosses a bridge that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. Klay Thompson, aren't they going to the finish line with Klay Thompson? He's a made man here. Okay. Maybe he is in some people's minds. Some people feel like Draymond's in that category. Did Draymond's ridiculous slug or head slap of Nurkic change anybody's mind about Draymond's ability or, the Warriors' plan with Draymond? And then doesn't Steph Curry have to kind of sign off on moving a Draymond Green or a Klay Thompson? I would think that he would. So I'm eager to see what options are out there, because I think the Warriors, it's really clear. They're either going to make no moves or they're going to make a huge move. Why? Because Paul makes 30 and Draymond makes 22 and Wiggins, I think, makes like 24. And if you group a couple of those guys together, you're talking about somebody coming back who makes $30, $40 million. So, you move any of those guys, really, it's gonna be a big, major earth-rattling trade that makes the lines light up on this radio station for weeks to come, right? You move Klay Thompson and every line's going to be lit for the next month. You move Draymond Green, same thing. Maybe Wiggins to a lesser degree. But that's where Dunleavy's got to sit. He's got a 500 team. I mean, what are the Warriors? They're 15-15. They're a little bit better at home. They're a little worse on the road, but they're 500. They're not in the playoffs. Something major is going to have to give, because you've got a lot of guys who are kind of in that similar deal. They either were great and now they're not as good, or they're young and they're getting better. And so he's got a really tough, who's in my rotation tonight question every single night.
Let's hear from Coach Steve Kerr talking about Jonathan Kuminga last night.
No, I wasn't really offended by the comments. I think J.K. meant well. I think it may have come out maybe a little differently than he intended, but it's all good. I mean, we talk every day. He knows when I pull him aside and I show him film, I show him exactly what he needs to do to do better and to get more playing time. So the comments are what they are. Not a big deal. We just move forward. The biggest thing for me is J.K. just continuing to grow and develop, and he's doing a great job of that this year. I think he's made big strides. Most of the stuff is just kind of little detailed stuff that, frankly, unless you're watching tape of the game and picking it apart as a basketball nerd, may not recognize, but it's what we do as coaches, and those are the things that lead to winning and losing. So, we're showing him all this stuff and trying to help him get better, and he's working hard, and I think he's gotten much better this year. I'm really excited about his growth.
See, I think, Larry, that if I've heard Pascal Siakam's name, just for the sake of this conversation, has been thrown around, and if is it Bobby Webster now that's the GM out there? Kuminga's got to be part of this. Like, I know we don't want to move off of Kuminga, but if you want to get value, you got to give up value. And I think GMs, they know you're selling them a bill of goods if Kuminga's not part of that. So the question then becomes, can you move off on Kuminga? Because I don't know. You might be right, but I don't know if I want value in return. If you're talking about a player that's going to help me win right now and matching windows with Steph Curry, Kuminga's got to be part of that. And because GMs are aware of just what it is that you laid out. I mean, it's not as though they can't recognize or turn on cable and see that, Clay hasn't been consistent this year and that Wiggins, who the hell knows where he is, and Draymond's Draymond. But the one guy I think that, and especially because he's gotten so much run and maybe has, because they put him out there, that there is a sense of, well, okay, now you have a commodity along with Chris Paul because, the contracts will match here and you're also maybe going to have to give up an unprotected pick. But I don't know how you circumvent not including Jonathan Kuminga if you want serious value in return. And you're not willing to do that.
I don't want to do that just because I really like Jonathan Kuminga. Siakam makes 37.8. I mean, you're going to move off of Jonathan Kuminga for a guy who's a free agent at the end of the year? And what exactly is he going to – what's Siakam going to do for this team? The Warriors' opening night over-under number this year was 47.5 wins. I just looked at it yesterday. They're at 44.5. That's what their over-under is right now. Guess how many games they won last year? 44 games. It was good enough to be, the 6th seed. They were the 6th seed at 44-38. So what is a Wiggins, Kuminga deal that gives you Siakam? Where's that going to put them? Is that going to let them? Are they going to win a title? They coming out of the West with Siakam? I don't necessarily see that. I don't know that Siakam is the guy that lifts them over the top.
I use him as an example, just that if you're going to get that sort of player, I think somebody mentioned, I heard we got a call Tobias Harris in Philadelphia. If you're going
another guy makes just a ridiculous amount of money.
You're going to have to. I don't know how any GM does not hang up on you if you don't include Jonathan Kuminga in the conversation. And I know that, look at his upside. The dude is 20 years old when you're talking about Kuminga. So Siakam's got to be in his late 20s. I want to say 28, 29 years of age. So you've got a window there with Steph for the next 3 years.
If you can sign Siakam.
Those conversations I think would have to take place before he even comes over here. We've got to, as a GM, you've got to be privy to the fact, whether you have these discussions with his agent that, hey, listen, here are the numbers that we're thinking about. There's got to be some sort of idea of what it's going to take to keep him in the building. Otherwise, it's a huge loss. And Jonathan Kuminga, again, 3-4 years from now, is 24, 25 years of age. So I'm with you. There's a high level of risk. But as they're, currently, the status quo of this team that are currently comprised, do you think getting back to the conversation of whether this team can return to prominence as far as getting to and winning the NBA Finals, if you don't pull the trigger are you good with this balance of youngsters and sort of this aging core?
Well, the question is not if I'm good with it. The question is, what's Steph prefer?
Yeah.
Does Steph want you to, do everything and anything to get him that one more ring? Or is he content to not win a ring and go out with his guys? And if it came down to you had to have one or the other, wouldn't you like to know what his preference is? I would. I mean, I'd like to know. Would you rather win and maybe move off of a Draymond Green or a Klay Thompson and see them somewhere else? Or would you rather not win, but go to, content, be in the playoff mix, have a shot, but go to the finish line to the end with Klay and Draymond on your team? I can't imagine that he wants to part from either of those guys. I mean, look how important Draymond Green is to setting up Steph Curry.
Yeah.
He's in some ways he's just like he makes Steph Curry a better player. He's Steph Curry's. Gretzky had Marty McSorley. I mean, he's kind of like Steph's Marty McSorley. I mean, Green is key, and then Klay. I mean, and those guys, not only, I mean, there's a relationship there. So, I mean, everybody knows the clout that Steph Curry has. He's one of the greatest players of all time. He makes $51 million. He's under contract for 3 more years. That's going to forever change the Steph and Klay relationship if suddenly Klay gets traded. It's going to change the Steph-Draymond relationship, you would think, if Draymond gets traded. So, it's just my assumption, and maybe I'm wrong. But I think that Steph is going to have to sign off on that. And I don't know that he's going to sign off on moving those two guys. And I don't know that they can make the kind of move that they need to make to become a title contender without doing that.